Have you ever noticed how the room changes when you leave it? How the energy shifts? How the words spoken soften when you are around, but sharpen the moment you step away? We live in a world where people are only hours in front of us. Their warmth, their loyalty, their kindness. It all dances beautifully before our eyes. But when we're gone, so is their loyalty, so is their truth. It hurts, doesn't it? But the truth is, people are rarely as real as they seem when they stand in front of us. They'll call you family at the dinner table and laugh at your scars behind closed doors. They'll say, "I'm always with you," until standing with you costs them something. They'll say, "You're strong," but whisper that you're too much when you're not listening. We keep giving pieces of our hearts to people who only perform loyalty in our presence. They become actors in our lives, rehearsing affection but never meaning the script. It's a harsh truth. But it's also freeing. Because once you realize that people can be physically present but emotionally absent, once you see that silence in your absence speaks louder than words in your presence, you stop chasing validation. You stop trying to be enough for people who are never enough for you. You stop begging for loyalty from temporary characters in your permanent story. Remember this, the people who are truly yours will stay yours, even in your absence. They won't need your eyes to do what's right for you. They won't need your presence to speak your name with pride, and they won't need applause to be loyal. So don't be afraid of losing people who were never really with you. Be afraid of losing yourself trying to keep them. You don't need a crowd that claps only when you're on stage. You need a tribe that defends you when you're not even in the room, because that's when you know they're truly yours. Presence is not possession. It's a lesson we often learn the hard way, through heartbreak, disappointment, and silent tears cried behind closed doors. Just because someone is sitting next to you, smiling, holding your hand, or calling you mine, doesn't mean they truly belong to you. We live in a world where presence is often mistaken for commitment, but in reality, presence can be just a temporary performance, not a promise of forever. So many people will give you their time, but not their truth. They'll sit beside you, but they won't stand up for you. They'll speak kindly to your face and still betray you when your back is turned. And yet, we cling to these connections, thinking that proximity means permanence. We wrap our hearts around fleeting gestures, thinking that the ones who show up are the ones who care. But presence can be empty. Presence can be deceptive. Presence can be nothing more than a comfort zone, one that keeps us from recognizing who truly deserves a place in our lives. It's easy to fall into the illusion. Someone laughs with us, listens to our stories, checks in on us once in a while, and we assume we matter. We think they're here, they must care. But not all presence comes from love. Sometimes people stay because it's convenient, because they have something to gain, because it looks good, because they haven't found anything better. And in the process, we give pieces of ourselves to people who never intended to stay past the good times. Think about the people who were once close to you, those who said they'd never leave, those who promised to walk through every storm with you. Where are they now? How many of them vanished the moment life got hard? How many stood by you in the fire, not just in the sunshine? The ones who were only ours when we're doing well, when we're glowing, when we're succeeding, they were never really ours. They were just visitors. And that's okay, because not everyone is meant to stay. But we have to stop giving them the role of permanence in our hearts. People are often present for the version of us that benefits them. They like the strong version, the happy version, the giving version, the version that uplifts them and asks for nothing in return. But show them your brokenness, show them your exhaustion, let them see the days when you're not okay. That's when you'll know whether their presence was genuine or conditional. That's when the masks fall off and the truth begins to show. Some will step back, some will grow quiet, some will criticize you for not being who they expect. And in that silence, you'll hear the loudest truth of all. Presence is not possession. We often confuse love with availability. We think that someone replying to our messages, calling us daily, or spending time with us means they're invested. But emotional presence runs deeper than physical proximity. It's about how someone shows up for you when it matters, not just when it's easy. It's about consistency, not convenience. There are people who may live thousands of miles away but still check in on your soul. And there are those who sit next to you every day yet remain strangers to your pain. What hurts the most is when we ignore the red flags in the name of presence. We make excuses for those who don't really show up for us emotionally. We tell ourselves, at least they're here, but are they really? Are they emotionally connected? Do they listen when you speak your truth? Do they see you, not just your smile, but your silence? Do they comfort you, not just with words, but with actions? If the answer is no, then what are we holding on to? An illusion? A habit? A hope that they'll change? We deserve more than empty presence. We deserve presence with purpose. People who look at us and see a person, not just a role to fill, not just a favor to ask, not just a chapter in their story. People who stand with us in the quiet, in the mess, in the chaos. People who don't just show up to clap for our wins, but to catch us when we fall. People who don't disappear when we're no longer shining. It's a difficult truth to accept that not everyone who stays physically is staying emotionally. But once you understand that presence doesn't equal possession, you start guarding your peace. You stop chasing those who are just there for the good times. You stop needing to be constantly surrounded just to feel worthy. You start valuing depth over duration, quality over quantity, connection over convenience. You learn to sit with yourself and not feel lonely. You learn to be your own safe space. And slowly, the ones who are truly meant to be in your life begin to reveal themselves. They won't need to be watched to be loyal. They won't need to be begged to be consistent. They'll be there, not just in body, but in spirit, fully, truly, always. Because real presence doesn't demand attention, it gives comfort. It doesn't seek spotlight, it brings light. And when you find that kind of presence, hold it gently, but never confuse it with possession. Because the people who are truly yours will never need to be held tightly. They'll stay, because that's where they belong. Behind smiles can hide absence. It's one of the most painful realizations we come to in life, that the people who smile the brightest in front of us can sometimes be the same ones who disappear when we need them most. Smiles are not always signs of love or loyalty. In many cases, they are masks, perfectly worn and skillfully crafted to hide true intentions, hidden resentments, or silent judgments. We grow up believing that if someone smiles at us, they're our friend. If someone laughs with us, they care. But life teaches us otherwise. Slowly, quietly, and sometimes brutally. Some people smile with you because it's easier than showing their indifference. Some stay close because it benefits them to do so, not because their hearts are connected to yours. They know how to be charming. They know how to say the right things, show up at the right moments, offer just enough warmth to stay in your good graces. But when life turns dark, when the storm hits, when you're no longer in a place to serve their needs or entertain their comfort, they vanish. And sometimes they don't just leave silently, they mock, they gossip, they betray, all while keeping that same smile plastered across their face the next time they see you. It's easy to mistake surface-level warmth for deep connection. After all, we're all wired to crave approval, attention, belonging. So when someone smiles at us, compliments us, stands beside us in moments of celebration, we take it as proof of closeness. We think, they care, they're real, they're mine. But true connection doesn't hide in convenience. It shows itself in chaos, in vulnerability, in the raw, unfiltered, unpretty parts of life. And most people simply don't stick around long enough or deep enough to be part of that version of you. They like the highlights, the happy posts, the success stories, the filtered moments. They show up when there's something to gain, even if it's just the joy of being seen with someone who's doing well. But when your world starts to crumble, when your soul begins to ache, when you're no longer the shining version they adore, their smiles disappear. Or worse, they stay. But their hearts don't. They become ghosts in your life, physically present but emotionally gone. They nod when you speak, but they don't hear. They hug you, but scold. They cheer you on publicly, but judge you silently. There's a loneliness that comes, not from being alone, but from being surrounded by people who pretend to care. That kind of loneliness is heavier than solitude, because it makes you question your worth. You start wondering if your pain is invisible, if your voice is too soft, if your heart is too much. But the truth is, it's not you, it's them. Their smiles are not about you. Their masks are not your burden to carry. Some people simply don't have the emotional depth to walk with others through the valleys. They prefer the mountaintops, the easy, light, and temporary versions of connection. You begin to notice things, how some friends only check in when they need something, how some relatives only show love in public but distance themselves when you're struggling, how some colleagues smile in meetings and throw you under the bus when you're not around. The cracks begin to show. And with time, you learn to look beyond the smiles. You start listening to energy instead of words. You begin to value actions over affection. And most importantly, you start to understand that love isn't loud. It's consistent, it's patient, it's real. There are people who will smile with you and cry behind closed doors because they're hurting too. Those are the ones who understand your silence. The ones who don't need you to be perfect. They don't show up for image, they show up for connection. But they're rare. Rare like honesty in a room full of pretenders. Rare like loyalty in a world of self-interest. So when you find someone whose smile is backed by sincerity, whose presence is rooted in loyalty, you hold on to them, not with force, but with gratitude. Because behind most smiles, there's a story. And not all of them are pretty. Some people wear their smiles like armor to hide their emptiness. Some use it to mask their envy. Others use it to manipulate. That's why you must never assume that every smile means safety. Pay attention. Not to the volume of their compliments, but to the silence when you need it the most. Not to their laughter, but to their loyalty. Because anyone can be present for the party. It takes something deeper to be present for the pain. Life will teach you how to see through smiles. It'll teach you how to recognize the difference between presence and connection, between affection and intention. And in the process, you'll become wiser, quieter, more selective, not bitter, just better. You'll learn that you don't need a room full of smiling faces. You just need a few real hearts. Hearts that show up, not for convenience, but for commitment. Hearts that stay, not just when you rise, but especially when you fall. Hearts that see you, even when you're hidden behind your own silence. That's where real connection lives, not in the smile, but in the soul behind it. Attachment doesn't equal loyalty. It's one of those truths that takes time and often pain to fully understand. We grow up believing that when someone is deeply attached to us, when they are around often, when they seem to need us, it must mean they are loyal. We confuse presence with permanence, routine with respect, and dependence with devotion. But the reality is that attachment is often rooted in what someone gets from us, not in what they're willing to give. When we're no longer watching, no longer convenient, no longer useful. True loyalty begins where attachment ends. It begins in absence. It's revealed in silence. And it thrives in places where no eyes are watching and no applause is heard. People can be attached to you because you provide them with something: comfort, validation, emotional security, status, even distraction from their own lives. They may be deeply entangled in your life, involved in your daily routine, sharing secrets and moments that feel meaningful. But when the foundation of that attachment is built on need instead of respect, it becomes fragile. The moment you stop serving that need, their behavior changes. The warmth turns cold. The effort fades. The words lose depth because they were never loyal to you. They were loyal to the role you played in their life. It's a hard pill to swallow, but necessary. People will stay close because of convenience, because of comfort, because it feels good to have you there, cheering them on, understanding them, forgiving them. They might even believe they are loyal. But when you're not in the room, when you're no longer the giver, when your absence creates a space rather than a spotlight, that is where real loyalty reveals itself. Because loyalty is not tested in comfort. It's tested in conflict, in distance, and in the moments when there's no benefit in staying loyal. You may have noticed how someone calls you their best friend, says all the right things, clings to you when they are in pain, and disappears when you're the one hurting. That's not loyalty, that's attachment. You may have seen how someone needs you when life gets rough, cries on your shoulder, leans into your kindness, and then turns silent when you need even a fraction of that care in return. That's not loyalty either. That's one-sided attachment dressed up as love. Loyalty isn't about who stays when things are going well. It's about who stays when things get messy. When misunderstandings happen, when you're not easy to love, when you're absent, not just physically, but emotionally unavailable, exhausted, or lost. It's about who keeps your name safe in rooms you're not in. It's about who defends your character when you're not there to hear it. It's about who chooses to show up for you, not because they have something to gain, but because they value the connection on a soul-deep level. We've all had people in our lives who showed deep attachment when we were close, checking in every day, laughing together, creating memories that felt unbreakable. And then life created a little distance. Maybe you moved or grew or just took a step back to heal. Suddenly the messages stopped, the support faded. The bond, once so strong, became silent. Why? Because the attachment was conditional. It thrived on proximity, on constant reassurance, on the version of you that they could access and benefit from. Loyalty, however, would have survived the silence. Loyalty would have reached out even when the connection wasn't effortless. Loyalty would have remembered and still cared. Real loyalty doesn't look like constant communication. It's not about someone being glued to you. It's quiet. It's steady. It exists even when no one is looking, even when no words are exchanged, even when life moves people apart. Loyalty doesn't change with distance. It doesn't fade with time. It holds, it waits, it returns, it respects, it defends. You begin to understand the difference between attachment and loyalty when you stop making yourself constantly available, when you stop being the one always reaching out, always giving, always pouring. That's when you see who steps up, who asks if you're okay, who shows up without being asked, who values you not just for what you offer, but for who you are when you have nothing left to give. There's also a trap in believing that someone who misses you is loyal. Missing someone can be selfish. People can miss the way you made them feel, the comfort you gave, the light you brought into their darkness, but still betray your trust, still talk behind your back, still vanish when your presence no longer serves them. Missing you doesn't always mean they respected you. It just means they were attached to the feeling you gave them. Loyalty is deeper. It's built on integrity, not emotion. It's about character, not closeness. It's about choosing someone again and again, even when it's hard. Even when no one else would blame you for walking away, even when they're not perfect, even when they're not there to applaud your loyalty. Because real loyalty is invisible. It's what you do when no one sees. It's what you say when no one hears. It's who you are in someone's absence that defines how loyal you truly are. When you finally stop confusing attachment with loyalty, you set yourself free. You stop expecting long-term commitment from people who are only capable of temporary presence. You stop overvaluing connections that look beautiful on the surface, but crumble under pressure. And you start making space for the rare, solid, enduring loyalty that doesn't depend on the spotlight, only on love, truth, and trust. Value yourself more than their presence. It's one of the most empowering yet difficult truths to live by, especially in a world where we're constantly told our worth is tied to how many people love us, support us, show up for us. We become so addicted to validation, to being seen and acknowledged, that we forget how sacred our own peace is. We forget that presence isn't always proof of love, that staying close isn't always rooted in loyalty, and that sometimes the people who smile at us the most are the very ones who disappear the moment we need them to stand up for us when we're not in the room. There's a tendency to tie our self-worth to relationships, to believe that if people choose us, support us, and stay near us when we're glowing, then we must be worthy. We chase acceptance, not realizing that sometimes acceptance is shallow, conditional, and temporary. We feel important when the phone keeps ringing, when the likes pile up, when the invites come through. But all of that fades when we go silent, when we stop giving, when we're no longer performing. And that's when the truth starts to speak. When their presence starts to disappear the moment we turn our back. That's when you learn who's truly in your corner. That's when you realize your peace was never supposed to be a trade-off for someone else's company. People will love you when it's easy to love you. When you're rising, winning, shining, they'll post about you, stand beside you, and call you their favorite. But when life humbles you, when your wins stop coming, when your smile fades into silence, many of those same people will quietly step back. Some won't defend your name when others speak ill of you. Some won't ask how you're doing when your energy shifts. Some won't even notice your absence. And that is the moment you must remember. Your worth is not in who claps for you, not in who praises you when you're present, but in who protects you when you're not around to hear it. You don't need crowds to validate your importance. You need peace. You need loyalty. You need presence that doesn't falter in the dark. And above all, you need to value yourself enough to walk away from those who only show up for the good times. Your peace should not be held hostage by temporary people. It should not be shattered every time someone stops calling or leaves your messages unread. It should not depend on whether or not someone shows up for your celebrations, because the ones who truly matter are the ones who show up for your breakdowns. Start paying attention to who defends you when you're not in the room. That's where real respect lives. That's where loyalty breathes. Anyone can pretend in your presence, anyone can be kind, loving, and supportive when you're watching. But what matters most is what they say when you're not listening, what they do when no one is watching, how they hold your name when you're not there to hold their hand. That's where the truth lives. That's where you'll find who truly values you, not for what you give, but for who you are. You are not a convenience store where people can walk in, take what they need and leave. You are not a stage where people can perform loyalty while the lights are on, only to walk away when the curtain falls. You are a human being with depth, emotions, and sacred energy. And not everyone deserves access to that. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table just because they stood beside you once. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to recognize when someone's presence is costing you your peace, and then choose to let them go. It's not easy. Walking away rarely is. Especially from people you once laughed with, cried with, shared dreams with. But what good is a presence that disappears the moment you stop smiling? What good is a friendship that fades the moment you stop giving? What good is loyalty that only exists when it's easy? You deserve more than that. You deserve the kind of connection that speaks your name with love, even in rooms filled with silence. You deserve people who check on your heart, not just your highlight reel. And until those people come, or if they never do, learn to be that for yourself. Learn to defend your own peace, to hold your own name with honor, to value your own soul more than the presence of someone who doesn't value you back. Learn to enjoy your own company so deeply that anyone who threatens your peace feels like noise. The more you love your peace, the more you'll repel those who only bring chaos. The more you respect your energy, the more you'll attract people who match that frequency. You are allowed to outgrow people who stayed still while you grew. You are allowed to stop explaining yourself to those who only ever listened to reply, not understand. You are allowed to say, this presence is not worth my peace. And you are allowed to love yourself enough to walk alone, rather than walk with those who are only loyal when you're looking. Because in the end, it's not about who's beside you in the spotlight. It's about who stands behind you in the dark, unseen, unheard, but deeply rooted. And you must be the first one to stand there for yourself. You must be the first one to choose peace over presence. Because the most powerful love you'll ever experience is the one where you finally decide, I am enough, even when they leave.